The message came at 9:47 p.m. "I'll be home late, don't worry." For a moment I just stared at the screen, the blue light casting a cold reflection across my face. The words looked harmless, gentle even, but my gut clenched like I'd swallowed glass. There was a rhythm to betrayal, and I'd learned to hear it long before it spoke. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, heart thudding. Then with a calm I didn't feel, I typed back. "No rush. I'm not alone either." I didn't mean it. Least not yet. But I wanted to see if she'd flinch. A minute passed. Then two. The read receipt glowed beneath my message, mocking me. No reply. That silence told me everything I needed to know. It hadn't always been like this. Sarah used to rush home. Shoes kicked off at the door. Laughter filling the apartment like sunlight. I used to wait for her, dinner ready, candles lit, because she said little gestures made her feel loved. Lately, though, she came home late more often, smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine and wearing that absent smile that never reached her eyes. I told myself it was work. I told myself she was tired. I told myself love meant trust even when it felt like drowning. But tonight I was done lying to myself. The apartment was silent except for the ticking of the kitchen clock and the soft hum of the refrigerator. I stood by the window watching the city lights shimmer below, wondering whose reflection she was caught in right now. On the counter, her half-empty wine glass from last night sat beside my untouched dinner plate. It felt symbolic, her lips on everything that used to be mine. I picked up my phone again. The photo I'd seen earlier this week flashed in my mind, Sarah at a team dinner, according to her caption, but her coworker Ethan had posted the same photo from a slightly different angle. In his, her hand rested under the table, fingers brushing against his thigh. I'd stared at that picture for hours, convincing myself it meant nothing. But denial has a shelf life. At 10:12 p.m., I grabbed my jacket and keys. The night air hit me like a slap, cold, briny, alive. The streets shimmered with the residue of rain. Neon signs reflected in the puddles like fractured truths. Her car wasn't at the office when I arrived. I waited anyway, parked across the street. At 10:54 she finally emerged, laughing. Ethan walked beside her. Their shoulders brushed, their smiles easy. He leaned in close, said something that made her tilt her head back and laugh, the same laugh she once reserved for me. And then he touched her face. That small, intimate gesture, the kind that meant familiarity, not impulse, was the final proof I didn't want. I didn't storm over. I didn't shout. I didn't break. I just sat there, numb, watching the version of her I used to know slip further away. When she finally drove off, I followed. Not closely, just enough to see her pull into the bar by the river, the one where we'd first met. The irony was cruel. Inside, the bar smelled of whiskey and old wood. She was at the counter, still with him. Her head rested against his shoulder as they whispered. I stayed in the shadows, heart pounding so hard it felt like a pulse in my throat. Every instinct screamed to confront her, to demand answers, but I didn't move. I wanted her truth to unravel itself. After another drink, she got up to use the restroom. That's when Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. He didn't notice, but I did, the photo lighting up the screen. It was of her, taken from the passenger seat of his car. She was smiling, wearing the same dress she'd told me she was saving for our anniversary dinner next month. Something inside me snapped. Not in anger but in clarity. I left before she came back. When she finally returned home past midnight, I was sitting on the couch, lights dimmed. She froze in the doorway, surprise flickering across her face. "Hey," she said softly. "You're still up." "Couldn't sleep," I replied. My tone was neutral, detached, like I was speaking to a stranger. She set down her purse. "Work ran late. We had a client dinner." I tilted my head. Ethan must be a great client. Her breath caught. "What?" "I saw you, Sarah. At the bar. You were wearing the dress I bought you." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her lips trembled. "It's not what it looked like." "That's funny," I said quietly, "because it looked exactly like what it was." Her eyes glistened. "Please let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you stayed late to laugh in another man's arms? That you've been lying for months while pretending to be mine." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "It just happened. I didn't plan for it. I was lonely and you felt so distant lately." "There it is," I said. "The justification. You wanted out, but you didn't have the courage to say it. She reached out to touch me, but I stepped back. You know, I said, voice low. When you texted me tonight, I replied that I wasn't alone either. You didn't answer. Do you know why? She shook her head. Because I wanted to see if guilt would make you respond. It didn't. Silence. Just the sound of her shallow breathing and the rain beginning to fall outside. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded slowly. I believe you. But sorry doesn't fix a dead thing. I picked up my overnight bag from beside the couch. I'd packed it hours ago, before I even left the house. Maybe deep down I already knew this night would end here. As I walked past her, she caught my wrist. Where will you go? I met her eyes, those same eyes that once held my entire world. Somewhere I can breathe again. I pulled free and stepped into the rain. The next morning I got another text from her. Just one line. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time before replying. No rush. I'm not alone anymore. And for the first time in months it was true. I wasn't. I had myself again.